being from Europe myself, I didn't know I was bringing that to the field when I'm talking to people. I didn't know
you've got beauty and wisdom.
I didn't know. I didn't know that was a thing being from Europe.
Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of everyone's favorite podcast, the Critical Arcade Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick.
And I'm Dave.
Yes. Oh, hello, Dave.
Hello, Nick. Are you well? It seems
Yes.
every time we start this, you're well, right?
I am well. Sorry, I would have been weller if our neighbors didn't decide to chop down a tree right now. All I'm hearing is, I'm hearing you in the one ear and chainsaw in the other.
Like I said, it sounds like a start to a cheesy horror movie.
It could be. It could. Well, I hope not. Maybe. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, Cape Town edition.
No, no thanks. I'm good. So, let's just jump straight into our episode, huh?
Okay, what game are we doing today, Nick?
This week is actually a very, very interesting week. There haven't been many episodes where we've done older games, like very old games. So this week we had the privilege to play Revelations Persona, the very first Persona game released for the PS1 in 1996.
I'm just checking. This is almost the oldest game we've done on the list so far.
Is it not?
Twisted Metal was the oldest at 1995.
Oh wow, it's close.
Yeah, it's very, very close to one another. Yeah, this is the second oldest game we've reviewed so far.
And have I got this right? Final Fantasy VII, the original, was released in 1997.
I think so. You're pushing my knowledge of my Final Fantasy now. I'm just going to say yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that means this was released 1 year before the greatest JRPG of the early PlayStation era.
Oh, you're starting a conversation now, but yes, you know, I would agree with that statement. Yes, I agree.
Yes, but yeah, a year before Final Fantasy VII, we got Revelations Persona, 1996 for the PlayStation 1, developed and published by Atlus.
Yes, everybody must. Anybody who knows any JRPGs and a few other games will know Atlus is quite a pedigree nowadays in regards to.
Of course.
Such games. You know, they've done loads.
Yeah.
And the latest Persona 5, as I'm sure most people have played or know of.
Yeah, that's the one. I think that's the one that most people do know, not by playing it, but at least have seen it or heard of it. Persona 5.
No, I agree.
I think that's 2016.
Yeah, I believe so. And yeah, that made headlines, and it is a very good game. That's basically the most known Persona game, but there are quite a lot of Persona games out there. It's just 5 was just a very well executed one, which made it more mainstream. But yeah,
Atlus. Sorry, yeah.
No, go on, Hugh.
Atlus is, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that is a Japanese company that mainly produces and publishes Japanese games. It's only after quite a while that they do get localized.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they mainly just did Japanese, and then they slowly started going into the Western market. This was their first release to the West, I believe. Atlus as a company.
Was Persona?
No, this game was released in Japan a couple of years before 1995, 1994. And because it did so well in Japan, they then translated it to English and then released it in the West. And it did quite well then. And that's kind of the start of them starting to realize the West was a market they could cater to too.
This is a big, interesting discussion. I like this as well. I can remember the original game, the Japanese one, was called, I think, Megami Ibenroku Persona.
Yes, that sounds right. They've always got those strange names, but yeah, that sounds about right. Megami Tensei, I know you remember names better than I did. He did a series of games just before this called If. It was
If, okay.
Yeah, just If, and it was a series of kind of stories, just like Persona, in regards to the question of what if this happened in certain scenarios. And then that game blew up in Japan because they loved the weirdness, the questions and the scenarios, and that's how then Persona was born, because it was one of the if scenarios in his original game.
Oh, so that was only a single chapter in a previous game that people loved so much.
Correct. That's my understanding. Yeah. Granted, it's yeah.
Well, kudos on Atlus for.
No, it was. It's one of those
for jumping on that, because it turned out this started the entire Persona franchise, which
exactly. It's one of those really. It's one of those bizarre franchise which could have very easily been a miss. If people weren't bothered about Persona and the Velvet Room and kids saving the world again, like any other anime trope out there. It could very much. It was very much a win or bust. It doesn't matter. It was one way or the other. It was quite a gamble. That's what I'm trying to say, and it paid off.
Through my entirety of playing this game, all I could think about was this is anime as hell.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the lord of anime.
Yeah, it knows its market well, old Atlus. they know what they're doing.
And for some people, that's a bad thing. I think based on its target market, you're right. That is a very, very good. That is a very smart move.
But it's one of the funny things. Revelations Persona actually had the highest first week sales of any Persona game up until Persona 5.
Yeah.
That first week, when it was first released on the PlayStation 1, it sold a couple 100,000 units.
Whoa.
And it's still it's still their second highest selling Persona game in the first week of release.
The Japanese version or the English version?
I have to think now.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't say. I was just reading the statistics, and I can't 100% qualify if it was the Japanese or the.
It'd be very interesting to know which one, because if it's following the hype of the If games, or if it's following the hype from the Japanese localizations.
Well, it was also, like you said, the PlayStation 5. Oh, sorry, the PlayStation. Sorry, was just starting to pump out Japanese RPGs at that point, be it Final Fantasy, be it Xenogears. That was also Square Enix. I can't remember when that came out. The PlayStation 1 was quite
Chrono
a big.
Cross.
Yeah, exactly. So the Japanese RPG thing was starting to grow some momentum at this point. So it could be the Western sales as well. I'm not entirely sure, but it's just funny to think that this is still first week was their second highest grossing sales of all time. It's crazy, isn't it? It's
wow,
crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, for a game that is, what's that, 26 years old?
Yeah, I know, 26 years old. Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, obviously not at that point now. That was 26 years ago. But still.
Yeah, and I was looking what else.
That's a nice chunky number.
What else released in 1996 for PlayStation 1? I was looking at that. That's Tomb Raider, the first Resident Evil, Tekken 2, and Wipeout Extra Large were the most the praised games of that year.
Yeah, those are some big ones. And they're all for the Sony PlayStation as well.
Yeah, correct. That's what some company to be in. Yeah, no doubt.
Quite. Well, let's. There's a nice big discussion we can have about this game, the game itself, and the development behind it. So let's jump in.
Yeah, let's do it narratively. So, like I said, I'm a Persona person. You know that. I've played 5, 4, 3, and a bunch of the other ones. Like, I forget what they've always got strange names. So what did you think narratively? Because this is one of the harder ones because it's not voiced. So this is a lot of reading, which today a lot of people find difficult to enjoy playing and reading at the same time, so to speak. So what did you think?
That's the one thing I don't get why people do have a problem with that. I've never also had an issue with reading. I read quite a lot of books, so if it's in a game, I don't mind at all. It helps sometimes so that I can understand better what's going on instead of if I miss a line of dialogue because my thoughts trailed off. I can't just go back and read.
Yeah.
With this game or games like this, I can understand how things are spelt. I know whose names are which. It's for me, it's much easier. I like it. It does get a bit tedious after a while, but then I just take a break and come back. It's fine.
That's right. It's strange to think that because we're old enough that I grew up with games like this. I also found it quite easy. It's very interesting. It'd be very interesting to think about gamers now, how much it would garner their interest, because I believe these games and a lot of its brethren, they kind of play more like a visual novel. Have you played the visual novel
in a way,
type games? Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah, because it's all, especially most of his games are all narrative and then some fun gameplay and functionality around it. I feel like that's and that's what Japanese RPGs generally are anyway.
It's with some just add a difficulty spike here and then you're golden.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the same. I thought for my money, the story on this is its strongest point. And you?
Oh, I think the audio is its strongest point, but we can have a nice picture. The narrative, it is super good. I got a ways in, a couple of hours in, had a good time, but I realized there's no way I'm going to consume this entire game before our recording. So I watched the video that explains the story, and I was blown away.
Yeah. In theory, stories, by the way.
Stories, yes, stories. Yeah. There's not even a single story. Multiple, plural. It is.
Exactly.
And this is a PS1 game. That's
what
I know. That's reminding. That's what I had to keep reminding myself. This is a game for the PlayStation 1. And granted, there are good games, big games, huge narrative games for the PlayStation 1, like Final Fantasy 7. But those were few and far between.
No, I agree. This again, he's a storyteller. You can see that in the game and the writing in the game. The localization's a bit off, but the fact that there's branching story, and in this game, ladies and gents, there's a branching story aspect. You go down one way, you go down the other way, and then you see how the story develops from there. So that you can, and then the story then ties into one another a bit later on. But I didn't even know that aspect in, say, the narrative side of gaming even existed in 1996. It happens a lot now, especially in a lot of Japanese games. But that's such a cool idea for 23 years ago. The fact that you can split the story up and then come back later or replay again to see what happened on that side. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah. The entire aspect of replayability wasn't as big then as it is now.
No, exactly. I found, I think I told you once before, the localization was brilliant. I found when you start the game, you get a description of each of the characters that you meet or are going to be controlling, and these are the greatest descriptions. Greatest in a cringy bad way to some degree, but they are the greatest descriptions of some kids I've ever come across. Like not one of the descriptions.
Okay, you keep using the word greatest.
Oh, sorry. I wonder what the word would be.
I'm to a certain degree, sure. Greatest.
Yeah, sorry. We're not talking Tolkien or anything like that. They're so. I wouldn't be friends with any of them. Like the way they're described. The way they're described, it's like whoever the writer was hated kids, and he just described the kids tropes that he didn't like. Of this one's annoying or self ignorant, or this one's self-conscious but hates people, and all this. When the list went on, I just thought, wow, this is a fun bunch of kids that's going to save the world, isn't it?
These are the protagonists?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, whoa. Except for the one that I did agree with. I forget, I'm not good with names. Her description was, she's been to Europe and she brought back beauty and wisdom. And being from Europe myself, I didn't know I was bringing that to the field when I'm talking to people. I didn't know
you've got beauty and wisdom.
I didn't know that was a thing being from Europe. Now I've got more conversation with people. Hi, I'm from Europe. Yes, that's right.
Oh,
I have beauty and wisdom. Let's talk. I know, right?
Yes, please.
I didn't know.
Come to my birthday party.
Japan. If I ever go to Japan, I'm going to be flooded by people just looking at my beauty and listening to my wisdom. I can't wait.
the name for that character was Ellen.
Ellen.
It was Ellen, I think. But it changes because of the localization.
The name's changed.
I don't know
how
I don't know how much you delved into what changed with the localization.
Not really.
This game was completely Americanized.
Yes, I know that. I saw a few things on that. Yeah.
Which is just an a fancy way of saying it was whitewashed. It was completely whitewashed.
It was.
All the characters' faces were lightened up, except for one, whose character was the only name that did not change. His name was Mark in the Japanese game, and his name was Mark in this game. His face was not whitewashed. He was turned black. He was turned into a black character.
I knew that's when that was coming. It's like Japan said, like, wait a minute, America has black people, right? Oh no!
We need to put a black person in there.
We need to put a black person in there. That's right, just so they're represented. Yeah. No,
yeah, and of course they chose the juvenile character.
Yeah, you did. Like almost racist, stereotypical aspect. But anyway.
So, Atlus of America, they couldn't entirely understand all of the content in this game. So a lot of names, they just changed it to be easier to read.
Yes, yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I don't have any other examples right now, but it was a bit... It was a tiny bit insulting to change most of these things to make it easier to read, easier to understand, because they thought that the American audience was dumber.
They still relatively do, but yeah, you're right. Okay. That was exactly no. You're exactly right. They exactly did that. They exactly do, and especially back in the day, 23 years ago or so. That is how they did perceive the West quite a lot. They had to dumb it down. They had to take out some mechanics, and even to this day, they take out any lewd bits within their games.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because they believe the West isn't capable of handling it, or it's not part of their culture as it is in Japan.
That's
and stuff.
Interesting.
They still do it today. There are certain aspects to some of the games they release that aren't okay for Western audiences, if you know what I mean. It's very weird.
Did they do something like that for Devil May Cry 5, which is still a very new game? I think
yes.
They did.
No. They do it for new IPs even now. I know there's, for example, the Fire Emblem games, the Japanese IP.
Okay.
And there was to build relationships, grows your strength and moves and stuff like that.
That's right.
And with sorry, it's hard to even say this on stream. When you want to build relationships with the female members, you can let's think, persuade them with touch a little bit. Let's put it that way. Nothing insanely like 18 rated, but certainly 16 rated in a very peculiar. And that's what they cut out a lot for the West, because it is peculiar, because the Japanese seem to love that. It's part of their culture to some degree.
Very nice. Thank you,
it
Japan.
is very strange. Yeah, it is. But anyway, we digress. None of that is in Revelations Persona.
No. But cutting content is something that they did do with this game, because the main reason we at the start said that this game contains stories was actually a tiny... It was a tiny white lie, because the original Japanese game, Megami Ibn Roku Persona, that one contained multiple routes. The big corporation Sebek route and the Snow Queen Safe to School route.
That's right.
But this one that we played, Revelations Persona, the Americanized version, just had an entire third. Let's say, what?
Yeah.
Third of the game removed. Because it was too much to translate before Christmas.
Yeah, is that the reason? I actually thought it was just due to, like I said, them perceiving the West as being unable to play a game for that long or follow a story for that long.
That might have been another reason, but from what I heard is they were very close to the release date, and of course Atlus executives wanted to get the game released before Christmas in the West.
Money.
Right.
I need money.
Money. And when they said, "Oh, we've still got this entire Snow Queen route to translate." Atlus said, "No, you know what? Leave it."
That's interesting. I can see it happening. Of course, everybody, the almighty dollar is always the thing that wins out in the end. But yeah, it's sad.
Also, see the executives saying the Americans won't even notice.
Yeah, especially that era. They don't do it that much now because we've all played Persona 5, and that's like 100 or so hours just for the storyline itself and other games. So at least they're thinking otherwise now. But there was that perception 20 so years ago. It's no doubt that, they were even hesitant to release in the West at all anyway, just because they wouldn't understand and all the other
everyone has learned their lesson. Nobody's trying to be this racist anymore, I don't hope. But now, at least, you're right, this doesn't happen anymore. Then, it did, all the time. So, the game we played was it was the lesser version of the two, but we obviously can't read Japanese, so we had to play this one.
Yes, correct. But like I said, I liked...
Sorry, yeah. The other version released in 2009 on the PSP.
Yes, that's right. It was released on the PSP, yeah.
That's not the one we're reviewing.
No, it isn't.
No, we're reviewing the original PlayStation 1 game. The one that has all the original music. And I'm so happy we did.
Oh, 100%. And like I said, we're not quite to the music. We'll get into that later, right?
Oh, still got to right. Sorry.
No, but it's fine. You're the music man, aren't you? So I can imagine that you're excited to talk about it. I thought the narrative was good, though. The story did have... It was bizarre, and he's known for that type of aspect to his storytelling. It was...
Sorry, who's he? We keep talking about a he.
I always... the Megumi Tensei, I always forget the first word. What's the first word?
Shin Megami Tensei.
Thank you. Shin Megami Tensei and his, say, crew of people. I presume it's... I keep saying he. Or her, sorry, that's very true.
Wait a minute, I don't know. Shin Megami Tensei, that's not a...
I know, but it was led by a gentleman, and I forget his name. Because it was Japanese.
Yeah, I was so confused.
Sorry.
Who's Shin Megami Tensei?
No, I always do that because I always forget his actual name. So Koji Okada, and his few other people with him. They're very well known to making these mindscape type games. The regards that the personas themselves are different layers of your personality and aspects to your weaknesses and your strengths and all this. So the story, like I said, I've always enjoyed their stories because they've always been bizarre. Like you don't see the like coming out from anywhere else, and he still does that now.
Yeah,
like the regards of opening a persona, or the Velvet Room, Igor protecting the Velvet Room, where you can fuse these personas together, and the whole aspect. That's... I love how trippy and almost Tim Burton aspect of the whole stories that he does, which I don't think that genre or that feeling isn't replicated in any other game, in my opinion.
I can't think of any, really. The Persona games, or the Shin Megami Tensei as a whole, that's a very unique
that's what I mean.
They've created. All the mechanics, everything. There's almost nothing like it.
Yeah, no, that's all I was trying to say, even albeit in a very long-winded and stuttering way. Okay, what did you think of the visuals then?
Wait a minute, before we go on narrative.
Sorry. Oh yeah, go on.
No,
sorry.
There's so much to say about this narrative that truly it just can't be told in what is effectively a shorter episode like the ones we're doing, where we do the entire game.
No, I agree.
There are hours worth of analysis videos on YouTube about this game and the narrative about it. What I like about it is that it just keeps going and going and going. And if it was bad, it wouldn't have been so cool that it just keeps chugging along. But it's good, and it just keep going. It's fantastic.
It's one of those first games for me where you actually see faults and complexities to the characters, even though I didn't like most of them. The stories really build upon their complexities, albeit he's ill, and that's why he's like this around other people, and this person's rich but he's lonely. Those aspects they really delve deep into. Like they add humanity to their games, which again is very rare in a lot of games we play.
Now it's been done quite a lot of times, but then not so much. And I think that's very, very cool. The one character in our localized versions, she's called Mary, but in the on the PSP and the Japanese version, she's called Maki. She's sick in the game. Right. She's sick in the game, and through the story, you find remnants of her, a good version and a bad version, and it's pieces of her heart. And you realized at the end, this alternate town was her creation.
That's right.
And it goes so much deeper. The person who you thought was the antagonist isn't. He ends up pointing you in the right direction. And who you do fight in the end is Maki's interpretation of herself. And you don't defeat the big bad monster. You make Maki realize she can come to terms with herself and who she is, and everything just turns back to normal. This isn't done in 1996.
No, that's why I think, like I said, that's why it got so popular in the time. Like you said, the flaws of humans being in games was never a thing. You were either the superhero or the bad guy. You know, that was
right.
It. You fought
it was very black and white.
Yeah, and he adds complexity, and even like you're saying, he makes an antagonist, and then you realize he's not an antagonist. Again, he's just a flawed human.
I like it.
He's just a bit damaged, and he does that very well, and he does that throughout. Oh, they do that. Sorry, throughout almost all the games, they build that storytelling very well.
Now that you mentioned games weren't like this, most games from that time, besides the JRPG games, came from the West.
Yeah, I'd say so. To some degree. It's
entirely. I can see why Japanese publishers thought that American or Western audiences wouldn't vibe with something like this, because they were so used to and invested in the, how do I say this, the black and white games where there is good and evil and you punch. And that's
No, exactly right. That's why Tomb Raider, it was just jumping, shooting, platforming, and Tekken 2 being one of the highest selling games of PlayStation 1 time, which is a fighting game. And they use those numbers to see if they'd enjoy, like I said, like a visual novel that this game kind of is, with some other mechanics. But this game, and I think most of the games to some degree, I actually find to be more a visual aspect to them and reading aspect. You know, you're playing again for the story with some fun things in between.
Yes.
Which is cool. And in Japan, visual novels and all that stuff, just literally visual novels and making decisions in them, is massive money. Huge enterprise. But anyway, I digress.
Okay. Still.
No, it is very cool. I can't picture a game back in the day that does this level of treating a customer as an adult as well as a kid, so to speak. It really is it's very cool.
Now I'm good to go into gameplay. Sorry.
Visuals.
Visuals. Is that next? Oh, damn. Sorry. Visuals. Okay. Visuals. So the visuals for this game, it did not impress me at all.
It's one of those things again. You got to think back to comparing it to other PlayStation 1 games, and it is difficult to do. And I agree, this didn't knock it out the park by any description of the word. Like I said, I had to look at pictures of. I actually looked at pictures of Tomb Raider and Resident Evil 1 just so that I could compare. You know, say the hardware to see just so I could get a refresh what the hardware could actually do.
Okay, and
you're right. It wasn't great. I wasn't blown away. Like, oh wow, okay, that is the same. No, not really. There were aspects to it I did enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, I liked the personas themselves. Their little sprite work was okay.
That was fun. Ooh, and I liked the 3D map that you could spin around.
Yes, that's cool. That's true. It's funny how that is really cool. Like, because it's a PlayStation 1 game, you look at that and go, wow! Because that's fun. Yeah, that was potentially, like, revolutionary in the time. That was really kind of... I also, one thing I did notice, which I did kind of like, I thought visually, the images for each kid, the drawing, actually matched their persona quite well. You know,
I didn't even notice that.
Like the rich or the snotty character, he looked snotty, and the arrogant fella, his drawing looked quite arrogant. I know. I'm trying to find.
Yeah. No, I get
could,
what you're saying.
but I think they did match it. Like I said, I'm not good with names, but when I saw the pictures, I remembered. Oh, that's him. Oh, yes, that's right. That's Mark, of course. Well, granted, Mark was the easy one.
Names are a bit tricky in this game because the localized version changed all the names. So each character's got essentially 2 names.
But yeah, if you compare it to the other games out at the time, it's certainly...
Yeah.
But it makes you, like I said, when you think about it, I can't remember now at the top of my head what the limitations to a CD was for the PlayStation 1. It was only, a few hundred megabytes, wasn't it? 600 megabytes? Am I making that up?
Yeah, a CD, I think that's just under 500 megabytes, like 470 or something. And if you need to fit textures and music...
that's what I mean.
And like a load of game on there, it gets small real quick.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's I'm just intrigued. I'm just thinking of it now. If that's how you lose, like, fidelity, graphics-wise. Because they all had to stick, like you said, quite a big narrative and quite a good audio score and everything onto one disc. Which it's potentially only later on that they start releasing games on multiple discs, so they didn't lose that side of things. You know, like I said, I know Final Fantasy VII was released on 3 or 4 discs. I think that was potentially, at least for me, it was one of the first. Because I know Final Fantasy VI was released on 1. Because it was the 2D sprite thing.
Yes, the sprites.
So it makes you wonder... visually, this isn't great, but it makes you wonder if it was the compact size of a CD back then was the reason behind it. What did you think?
Technical limitations, right? Technical limitations was what held this game back a bit.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
It still struck a chord. It still got its audience, reached its target market. So it was fine. I do think, though, the one bit of visuals that I did really like was the first-person traversal through the dungeons.
Yes, I like the because it changed your perspective view, which is again that's kind of cool in a PlayStation, an old 23-year-old game. That was cool. I agree.
And actually, traversing these environments, I did like that. If you walk forward, you walk forward. It's just it's not a new screen each time. You walk forward and you turn left and right, or you strafe. That's cool. I like seeing that.
No, it was. Yeah, again, I don't know if this is a new thing of its time, but no, it was a very... It's funny, we all take we all... What's the word now? What we get to play now, it's all simple and we see all this stuff, but when you see it in its original form, like in Persona 1, you really are quite more shocked at how cool the differences in just going from, say, an isometric view to a first-person view. And that's actually... That was a big thing. You know, that was a big change in the whole industry of gaming. And to actually see it happen is really quite fun or cool to see, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't a cave, or it wasn't a forest that you were traversing through. It was a hospital, or a school, or a police station. You know, places that you can recognize, that you've been in yourself. And then you see it through the eyes in this game. It makes everything so... relatable and immersive, and it's really
I agree.
Cool. It is really cool.
No, I did. It is, like I said, because it's. I was born that age in that era and stuff like that to some degree. It is very cool, and it's got that nostalgia hit for me because it's the games I played like everybody else. When you play the games you played in the era when you were a kid, you feel a bit like a kid again, and there was that feeling playing this game, even though it's graphically not great and it's not, it's not the most powerful thing on earth. There's just that little giddy inner child when you play the games when you're of your past.
That's what we're after.
Yeah, that makes you smile, and even that I can those bits. Like I know there are older games like we probably don't know called Albion, and which did the same type of aspects for PC long time ago, and to see that happen again it's quite a fun little feeling. At least for me, it was a fun. Like I said, it made me smile. And it is cool.
That's good.
It is visually. That's quite an achievement. It really was to change from the two different perspectives.
The one thing I want to comment on, we can use it as a segue as well, is the noises that you heard in these spaces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
at the start of the game, like, at the very start, you are inside a hospital. Mary or Marky just collapsed, and while you're waiting outside of the ICU, you can hear you feel an earthquake, and you hear shouts and screams, and the entire building shifts and turns. You start stressing, you open the door to the ICU, and it's just a wall. That put me off entirely. But what is really sticking with me, what really stuck with me, once you get out of that entire sequence, you can now explore the hospital again in this first-person view, in this state. You can start exploring. But when you walk around, all the hallways are twisted unnaturally.
That's right.
Always lead to nowhere. It branches off and it twists and it just stops. What I really, really, really liked, and I guess didn't like, was that you could hear shouts and screams and howls and growls in the distance.
Yeah, like ambience or environmental noise, right?
Exactly. But what I realized was, eventually you get down all the hallways and all the rooms, and you only find a couple of people. What's weird? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to say that this sound it really disturbed me. It unnerved me because you never see these people that are shouting in pain or all these nasty things that are howling. And it led me to believe that this twisting hallway that you're running down isn't the only one in the building.
Okay, yeah.
I think what I'm trying to get at is there are other hallways also twisting around, beneath, and over you that people are trapped in.
And you're hearing their screams, right?
Exactly. They do not have an exit.
Oh, okay. So those people are actually trapped in there forever because they don't have, like you said, they don't have the abilities that you do as a character to be able to transverse or to find an exit and all the other things. Yeah, it's spooky.
I'm just interpreting over here, but
yeah, that's fine. It's what games are about to some degree.
It entirely makes sense to me that is something that would happen in a paranormal situation like that. Some person is trapped in a hallway that do not have exits at either end, so they are trapped and screaming. Maybe someone is trapped in a room with a ghoul or a monster of some sorts. That is what disturbed me entirely from this hospital section. I would just be traversing and hearing people on the other side of the wall who probably can't get out.
That's one of the
scary.
The one things you point out is that, and I only just thought about it now, the Persona games do have that little edge of horror to them, don't they?
Yes.
They've got that little atmospheric or weird concepts that add to a creepy mindset. And it does, you're right, it pulls off these weird, scary moments. Not Resident Evil scary or Dead Space scary, but almost psychologically scary moments. Which almost all of the Persona games have that little aspect in the background running through them because it's mainly talking about the psyche and damages to the mental mindset and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. Those environmental screams and the fact that you never actually get to see the people screaming does beg the question: where are they, and why are they screaming? which like you said is good audio. Which is good. If anything begs the question, that just means it's doing its job.
That's very good audio. And speaking of good audio, the Persona games have gotten this a reputation for having just the absolute best music.
Oh yeah,
and it obviously it came from this game, or well, the first Persona game. It has incredible music. The entire week we were playing this. When I wasn't playing this game, I had the Persona soundtrack in my ears while I was doing chores.
Oh really?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes. It's so good. It's so good.
Oh well, that's really cool. Of course I didn't go that deep. You know, I do like it, but like I said, I know with your music background, you have a greater love for these things. I did love. this is the first time Aria of the Soul was invented for the Velvet Room. You know the you know where Igor is, the Velvet Room.
Yes.
That song, which is used in every single Persona game for the Velvet Room.
Oh wow! Okay, from the very first one.
From the very first one, this is where I forget. Yeah, 'cause I'm not good with names. He composed that song, and it's used. It's amped up and of course digitally fixed a bit for the next generations. Yes. But that is the exact same song throughout. That is Igor's Velvet Room song.
I absolutely love it when games do things like this. It is good. It's so good. Even The Legend of Zelda, the first tune they did for the game on the NES. It was such a banger, and they just kept rearranging it until you could still recognize it's the same tune. It's just I absolutely love it when games do stuff like this.
That's that cool little sorry, because I don't Zelda much, but I do think I know the song. That's that cool like adventure-y type song.
Exactly.
You know. Yeah. No, I do know. No, I do enjoy that as well. I love it when like you were saying, like in Final Fantasy, you know, the same things that run throughout their games is always quite a pleasing aspect when you're definitely as you're a fan. And the idea, like I said, I love that song is called the Aria of the Soul for the Velvet Room because you're talking about personas and aspects of the soul itself. I thought that Persona games and their soundtrack are top notch.
Persona 6, for example, when Persona 6 when it comes out, and you enter the Velvet Room for the first time, and then you hear Aria for the Soul, a lot of people are going to get just the biggest nostalgia bomb.
Yeah, you'll instantly know where you are, you know, because they like to wake you up there, or you transverse some gateway to get there, and as soon as they start playing that song, you know where you are. And that's just great. Just like Star Wars and any other IP or whatever other thing that music that makes you nostalgic and get those feelings. You know, it's just one of those magic things about music in general and music in gaming. It has that same aspect now. Now that I know that it's nice to know that they've got it throughout. Just from playing this game, I now know that all the Persona games have the Aria of the Soul as and that's kind of cool to know.
That's very cool. I agree. No, I like that as well.
But how about the battle sounds and stuff? Did you enjoy that?
The battle?
The sounds in battle when you're fighting the other personas.
My favorite. I did like it, but what I absolutely love was a game. This game isn't voiced. The entire thing is text. It's read. It's text based. No, not text based. But what I liked was in the middle of battle, when you cast a spell using your persona, the character who does it shouts, "Persona!"
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, it's the only part that seems to be voiced.
Yes.
Which is, when they first time they do it, you're like, whoa. That's true. You're like, whoa, they speak. That's so badass. Again, you got to remember, we're being happy about what sounds like a fairly simple concept, but in 23 years ago, there were very few voiced games, especially games like Japanese RPGs, I believe. I know there were other voiced games, but this was so cool. I didn't expect it or anything. I expected just these, standard fire animate or attack animations and noises and clunks. But when they started talking, when they did the Persona, it was eerily quite exciting.
Yeah, I liked it. I was like, hell yeah, fireball.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. Besides that, everything else just blends together to make it one enjoyably sounding experience. I like the way this game sounded a bit more than what this game looked like.
Yeah, no, I agree. The audio is definitely a lot better than its visuals. The visuals aren't bad; they're passable. That's about it.
Exactly.
The audio is certainly, like you said, the fact that you were listening to it just shows how good it is when you were listening to it outside of playing it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That must be very cool.
But one thing that I must say I did not enjoy was the gameplay for this game.
Yeah, I've also got that as a kind of a downside. What didn't you like?
First of all, there was one action in this game that it grinds my gears. I don't know why they did this, but at the start of each turn, you need to lock in an action for each of your characters. Right? You lock an attack for the main character and the second one and the third one and the fourth one.
That's right.
If you get to the fifth one and you decide and you choose you want to use your persona and you think, nah, I think I'd rather just melee, and you press back or circle on the controller, it erases everything move you've chosen for each of the characters.
That's right. You have to redo them all over again.
All of them? You're telling me, Atlus, I now need to re-pick every single action for all of these characters that I've already chosen in the middle of this fight. Why is that necessary?
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. And I remember there's a few other games. I can't remember what they are, but I remember having that same problem because I played lots of turn-based RPGs. But it is insanely frustrating. I know exactly what you mean, and it is a very silly thing that you can't just cancel that character's actions.
Right?
And to cancel the whole line is insane. No, I agree. It is extremely frustrating.
There probably is, because it sounds too insane that isn't possible. But I couldn't. Maybe I just pressed back twice. I don't know, but it always happened. It always happened, and I always got frustrated.
I even found the isometric transversal of rooms and stuff. I found that weirdly complicated.
That too.
Like, it felt really unnatural. I don't know what it is. I don't know if we're not used to the older games, but it just felt really like, oh, okay. It kind of you have to get used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I'm pressing up. Why is my character going left?
Yeah, I know. It's one of those like, oh, so the controls are from that perspective. So you got to like change your frame of mind. Okay, it's that way. No, it was really weird and jarring to start off with. You soon got used to it, but it is a very strange aspect to it. I don't know why it's that way, but it was kind of jarring when I first came across it.
And this game has like 3 different views which you traverse this game. You've got the isometric view that you use to explore the rooms, I guess. The first-person view that you explore entire dungeons. And then you've got this... How would I say this? This zoomed-out view where you just control an arrow on the town map.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was an old-school thing they used to do quite a few games. But yeah, you're right.
It's just a lot, and I don't think it landed quite well.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it was quite a common old gameplay thing, which lots of games started putting in there, which I don't think translates well today because we're so used to certain aspects and things being so simple now that the older stuff looks hard. And it is the controls and stuff in this game is kind of janky and hard, and like you said, if you compare it, if you do look at other games in the same era, you don't really have those problems. It's weird. I wonder if it is the localization, because I know in Japan, if you're using a controller, the X or circle and X or X and are swapped. Yeah. Do you know that in Japan? Because in Japan, a circle means positive, correct. So you press circle to proceed, and X means negative. And it makes you how many other aspects of that scenario there might be in the control scheme when doing porting things to the West.
Okay.
So yeah, if you do a really bad port, you notice proceed is circle and cancel is X in Japanese games.
I never realized that.
Which sometimes it does get lost in translation when you transfer. They do bad ports or try to westernize games. But anyway, the gameplay, and because I know you played Persona 5 and I played lots of the Persona games. Yes. I find if you play the game as a whole, it's quite complicated. If I didn't know already how to fuse Persona and the weaknesses of certain attacks and the weird mechanic to talk to the other Persona, i.e. to get items or for them to flee
that I could not figure out. I didn't know how. I didn't get it.
Really quite complicated and not hugely explained in the game. So I could do it and get through with it, and it was all even the things, my successes were all just randomly luck generated. I didn't really know what I was doing. But I was only going through those steps because I played past games. If I'd picked this up as a noob or whatever term you want to do, not knowing what to do, that was very confusing. Like, I would be like, I just wouldn't do it. I just keep using the same persona and just power it up. It is weirdly complicated.
I get it. I don't have too much to say about gameplay besides that it's not it. I mean, I get where the turn-based, I get where the JRPG aspects came from. I get it. I do. I just like them more in something like Final Fantasy VI than what I liked it here.
No, I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree entirely. And a lot of the older Persona games do keep this kind of thing. I know a lot of the Game Boy games and the Game Boy Advance games still do the same. But they do tweak it. It does get better. You know, this is the first one, and they do tweak the formula, as we all know, to play Persona 5, where it's almost faultless, in my opinion. But anyway, we digress.
Agreed.
So, anything else for gameplay-wise that what you liked or disliked?
No, not much. Just that I've played this game before, not impressed. It's a JRPG.
Yeah. Any performance issues did you start? You know, because I played the PlayStation 1 PlayStation 1 version, and I think you did. I didn't actually see many issues myself.
No, not a lot of issues. Maybe just some comments. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think the one thing that is probably debatable is that the localization and translation for this game was so bad and so poorly done. It might be slotted under performance issues. I don't know. That's what I've got written under performance as well. It's like the only thing is the localization a performance issue, because it is the worst.
It is bad. Yeah, it's hard. It's relatively hard to follow, and you can see someone's doing their best to translate it, but they needed someone better.
Yeah. He's the only one on the team. The rest just want to go on lunch.
Yeah, they used the intern and said, "No, here, take that and make it English." Yeah, shame. That's the only real issue I had performance-wise, because the localization isn't great, and it makes it kind of complicated to follow to some degree.
The only other thing that I've got is the amount of loading screens.
Well, that was a PlayStation 1 issue. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then it's a performance note I've got for the entire PlayStation 1 generation.
Yeah, there was always quite that.
There's just a lot of loading screens. Is it because games are based on discs now and not cartridges anymore?
Yes, I believe it was that. There's that premise to it, because disc reading was always capped at a certain speed, and so especially with games that have audio, visual, and all the other things that they got to load up to the next screen, of course it takes a lot longer to do so. So games like 2D sprite games loaded quicker, but 3D audio always had really long loading screens.
Not to bring it back to Final Fantasy VI again, but that is a 2D sprite-based game on the SNES, cartridge-based, and it almost had no loading time.
No, and you're right about the cartridge thing. You did have a faster reading aspect to the cartridge compared to a disc, because of the rotation and all the reading stuff like. But yeah, you're right, and it's one of those weird differences to the discs being the evolutions of games, but it certainly did have some drawbacks in regards to a cartridge-based game that did undoubtedly load faster and
I'm guessing
and play quicker.
I'm also going to just guess that most developers did not know how to optimize games for discs. They've been using cartridges for, I think, like close to more than a decade at that point, and now discs are the new big hit, the new big thing.
There would have been a big jump in complexity and stuff like that. No, I agree entirely. That it would have been very hard to do, and I don't know how big. I don't know when PlayStation 1 was that the first console to do discs.
Yes,
I feel like there might be some other consoles that came out that nobody really bought, but PlayStation 1 was the first one.
Okay, you're right.
So yeah, there was that hardware gap that people either hit or miss or didn't know what to do yet, because it does get a little better as the PlayStation 1 gets on. But yeah, loading times with big games. I'm trying to think Final Fantasy VII, if it had lots of loading screens or long ones, and it didn't have the longest loading screen, so they must have fixed it to some degree. as the years went on. I can't picture it on the top of my head. But anyway, semantics for the moment. So yeah, performance-wise, it's just really the localization, and yes, the loading screens are frustrating. But that was, like I said, that was a thing you had to deal with in the past. And value for money, here's a good one. What did you think for
the value for money? The value for money. This is I googled how much this game costs now, and I could not.
Yeah, I was shocked too.
Could not believe my eyes. So there's obviously this is a bit different because this game was released 26 years ago for the PlayStation 1. A new copy of this game is I got it for $400.
You got a new copy. I got a second-hand copy for $500.
Oh, okay. No, mine must have been a used copy as well.
Yeah,
$400 or $500.
Yeah, there was one I looked on eBay. He was selling a new copy for $1,200.
Oh, 12 grand. That no, not 12 grand. Sorry,
no.
1200.
No, that's crazy. Like, ladies and gents, if you've got one of these collecting dust somewhere in your garage or something, look after it, because that was mental.
Yes.
The only other thing, it also came out on the PlayStation Classic. You know, the new PlayStation they released as part of the minis were coming out. This was actually on one of the games you could also get on the hardware itself.
Persona. Oh, no way.
It was one of the games on their little hard drive that came with it. But it's still going to cost you a few $100 either way if you want to actually own the.
It is. And what I've read, the mini PlayStation is just an emulator. It doesn't run the games natively.
Yeah, no, it is. It is just an emulator.
That's lame.
Yeah, it is. It is a shame that. But yeah, this is an expensive game. It's I get it. It probably had very low print run and stuff like that. But this is an expensive game.
And I think the only PC version of this game was Megami Ibn Roku Persona, the Japanese version.
Yes, I think so, yes.
If you don't have a PS1, the mini PlayStation, or a PSP, you can't play this game. You can't play the English version of this game.
Yeah, correct. It is.
We don't condone piracy on this podcast, but it almost seems like there's no other way to play this game.
Especially, like I say, we don't condone, especially really old, unique or rare games.
Yes.
You know, unless you got deep pockets, you never get to you never actually get to play them. And, you know, it is one of those things. It's an expensive game. It's a cool game. You know, like I said, it's if anybody owns it, like I say, look after it. I bet you that's a really, really expensive game. So... value for money wise, I don't think either of us scored it particularly high.
No, not at all. It is insane. That's some very okay. If we need to spell out it for someone, you're not going to get your value for money if you pay $500.
No,
for this game,
not even close.
You're not.
You could buy $105 games, which would get you a lot more for your bang for your buck than this.
You could buy a Sony PlayStation 5 for that amount of money.
But it was a shock researching the price of this game. That was quite a shock.
Yeah.
But, like I said,
okay, so, wow. Persona. I've got to say, this game is one I've always wanted to play ever since I've played Persona 5. Revelations Persona, seeing where it all came from, I've always been interested. So it's
I agree.
Cool.
I always like to see where things come from, like, and then you can respect how it's evolved because you played the newest one. And this, you can see it. You can see the bare bones of the whole Persona franchise on this game, and it is quite cool to see.
For someone like you who's played most of the Persona games, you actually recognize something like what's it, Aria of the Soul,
exactly,
Velvet and Igor, all of those.
Exactly.
I can just imagine what nostalgia hit you got from that.
No, exactly. It was a lot of fun. Like whenever you go back to the games of your childhood or even before then, they're just it's almost like going to the museum, where you get to see how cars were made or planes were thought of. It's the same premise when you go back to these old retro games and you see, oh look, there's Igor, and he's like in all of them, and look, there's persona and the concept of the persona being a part of your personality that splits from you and all. It's all there, and that happens to all the other games, kinda in some way or form. And it is. The museum trip of it is a lot of fun. And it was fun for me because, like you said, I've played a good number of the ones in the past. So
yeah,
so what did we score this bad boy then?
Yeah, Revelations Persona, developed by Atlus for the PlayStation 1 in 1996. We tallied up our scores, some very high, some very low, threw them in the bag, shook it up, and we gave Revelations Persona the letter grade rating of C-.
Yeah, again, another
C-.
Which is also, I always find it really interesting. This got a C- and was 23 years ago, and Darksiders 3, which is, I can't remember, 5 or 6 years old now, isn't it? Got the same grade.
The same grade. Yeah, I don't get it either.
Isn't it interesting how a game from the past you can see more faults or even praise, and a game that's newer has the same level of praise and fault ratio? I know, it's just I don't know, maybe I'm phrasing it wrong, but it's just really interesting that even as the generationally games get better, they still stumble on the same blocks that some of the older games do. Yeah. Sorry, I might just be ranting a bit now, or
no,
sorry.
I mean, compared to other forms of entertainment like movies or theater, video games are still very young.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's no, like I said, it's a lot of fun looking back at it. And this is if you can get your hands on it and you do like a good story or a good visual novel or good Japanese RPG, this is a C- game. I think that's a perfectly decent
I think
score
so too.
for it. Yeah.
If you don't care about the soundtrack, which you can just listen to in your on your phone or whatever, play the. There's no real version to play easily, is there?
No, exactly.
No, forget I said anything. But yeah, thank you for listening to this episode of the Critical Arcade Podcast. If you want to follow me, still working that out. I think we're gonna go with Instagram. Instagram. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's the next step.
Emails. We'll see. We'll see in the new year.
Yeah, that's the New Year's problem.
Unless this episode releases in the new year.
Let me. Does it?
I think it does.
It does. We'll be doing it this year at some point.
Somewhere in this year, we'll figure things out. Yeah,
that's right.
Dave, where can they follow you?
Well, they can find me if they do find me and they do start following me. I'm afraid I will make them hang out with all the other kids who are horribly described, and I will sit. And I will just be sitting there with my beauty and wisdom, being a European, whilst you deal with all the other characters. I'm just going to sit there on my pedestal, being beautiful and wise.
There you go. That's what you get. Don't
follow David. Yeah, exactly. You just don't want to do it. Trust me.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Critical Arcade Podcast. We're here each week. You can find us wherever you find your podcast. It's very nice to have you here. Cool. Well, see you next week. Oh, no, wait.
What are we playing next week? Yeah, about to say.
What are we playing next week?
Next week, we're playing, I think it's I always forget which part of the franchise. Next week, we are playing Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker for PlayStation 3. Now,
that's right.
I think that's one of the... I forget which ones are the best ones. I think Solid Snake... I get confused with all the names of the Metal Gear Solid games. I don't know. Have you played any of them? I've played a few of them, a couple of them.
Anything of Metal Gear Solid series. Nothing. It's so intimidating. It's so intimidating.
So you don't get the whole meme, Snake! I
do get that. I know where that comes from. But
no, they are confusing games.
It's Hideo Kojima. I've not played any of them. I mean,
oh well, that's exciting.
Look cool. What's Metal Gear Solid 3's name? Because that's people argue the best one.
I want to say it's Liberty of something.
Sons of Liberty.
Sons of Liberty. That could be it. Yeah, I think I've played that one. I think I've actually completed that one.
Oh, okay. All right.
They're classics. Metal Gear Solid, classic game. It's going to be fun. The fact that you've never played them, so it's going to be fun to see your perspective of these. Yeah, that's going to be cool for PlayStation 3.
Anyway. Join us for next week for Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker and for more banter. Thanks for joining on this week. We'll see you next week. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.